It's Up All Afternoon with Kyle Anderson.
Welcome back to Up All Afternoon on Entertainment Weekly Radio, Sirius XM 105. I am Kyle Anderson. Second hour of your Wednesday show has arrived here. Later on this hour, we're going to run through the Up All Afternoon Top 10. We're also going to welcome in the great Sam Highfill from Entertainment Weekly, get some updates from what's going on in her world of television, get some updates on tonight's Riverdale. But joining me right now, I'm so excited to be joined by my next guest. She is a woman whose work I have loved for years at this point, and you can currently see her in the current season of Bosch, one of the great shows on TV. Season 5 out now on Amazon. We welcome in the wonderful Juliet Landau.
Thank you so
Hi, Juliet.
much.
How are you?
Hi, I am fantastic.
It's
How are you today?
lovely to see you.
It's great to see you, too. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in. I'm such a huge fan of the show Bosch, and when I learned that you were going to be on it, I was like, well, that's great. What a perfect marriage of things I enjoy. Were you a fan of the show before you took the job?
Yes, I actually had seen every episode of seasons 1 through 4, which was quite a feat. Yeah, and it was a
You're
feat.
very serious about it.
Very serious. And it was actually a feat because my husband and I are working on a number of projects and wearing many hats, and we still made time to see Bosch.
Wow. That's commitment. I like that a lot.
Yeah, well, it is a fantastic show.
It's a fantastic show, and your role this season, in this 5th season of Bosch, is such an interesting role because this woman, Rita, is, she's kind of leading this dual life. She's a little bit shady. What was it about the role in particular where you thought, like, oh, yeah, I can really sink my teeth into this?
Well, a lot of what you're talking about, I mean, the fact that she does have this dual life and lives, works as a very capable, reliable court reporter, been working with an honorable judge in her courtroom for 16 years. At the same time, married secretly to a man on death row who has been convicted of a brutal rape and murder and suspected of more. And she's compartmentalized her life and kept it this sort of balance, which all of a sudden Bosch and his team start to suss out that she's married to Preston, and that throws all of that into turmoil, and she becomes completely terrified that everything could be destroyed.
Yeah, and it must be so interesting too because that is such a very specific, and I know that's a phenomenon that actually happens, right? This sort of kind of psychological phenomenon where people who are involved in law enforcement end up kind of falling in love with criminals.
Yes.
And so that's what an interesting thing to be able to play.
Yes. I mean, it was so incredible in terms of I did so much research on this, and it is really common. And there's a condition called hybristophilia, which is basically...
It's a fun word.
Yeah, right? I just whipped that out, right?
Just casually in conversation.
Just casually,
Yep.
But it means it's when a person can only get aroused or have orgasm when their partner has committed an act of outrage, like rape or murder. And, a lot of the women that are involved with men on death row or criminals have that. I mean, in some ways, I feel like Rita was a little bit different than that, in that I feel like she feels like she's an outsider, and Prez is certainly the ultimate outsider, outside of all of societal bounds, and she feels like he sees the real her, and they have this connection. And it was interesting because when I first started, I you could sort of view this character at arm's length initially,
Sure.
and sort of, but then you start to realize that her needs and desires are universal, and that in some ways this relationship is it's like the ultimate long distance relationship, right? Okay.
Both physically and psychologically, right?
Yes, and it's not just geography; it's bars, and it's the system keeping them apart. But it's also a microcosm for the extreme of any unhealthy relationship.
Right.
Because I think most of us have at least had one relationship where you are sort of with someone who you think, it's the fantasy of who they are rather than who they truly are.
Right.
And I think that a lot of that's going on. But it's amazing how many people there are. There's actually dating sites for death row inmates.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of wild.
It is wild. It
Yeah.
says things like, I like to go hiking and I like to cook. You're thinking, I mean, I don't think these things are going to come.
You hiking? Like,
yeah,
that seems
like
crazy.
it's sort of not something that's ever going to happen again.
That's wild. Yeah. No, it is interesting though that you say that because like I mean, obviously like not all of us have fallen in love with someone on death row, but there is a real universality to the idea that who among us hasn't broken up with somebody, and then afterwards all your friends say like, "Oh man, I'm so glad that happened because that person was terrible."
Right? They were terrible. They were why didn't you tell me during? Right.
Right. But that message would have never got across to you while you were in the relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's very cool.
And it was. I mean, it was so much fun to get to play a character that is living with this tremendous secret. And how is that every day going? I ended up having a chain with my character's wedding ring that she secretly is always underneath her clothes during the day, but when she goes and visits him, then she takes it out for him to see only, and
wow,
little details.
These great
like
little
that.
details, yeah. What were your conversations like with Michael Connelly and Eric Overmyer?
Well, amazing, and Michael Connelly is so involved in the show and has brought the universe that he created from the novels so brilliantly to the screen. And Eric Overmyer, I have been a fan of since The Wire. So the thing with them is they really create a sense of realism. Everything and such well-rounded characters with so much dimension. So the conversations were just infinitely fascinating.
Well, and I also really love, because you have a bunch of scenes in this new season of Bosch, which is available on Amazon right now, the 5th season on Amazon Prime, and I'm here with Juliet Landau on Up All Afternoon. You have a bunch of scenes with an actor who I love and who's a friend of this show, Ryan Hurst.
Oh, Ryan's great.
He's so fantastic.
He is.
Because he is a terrifying-looking human.
And he's such a sweetheart.
He's the sweetest dude in the universe.
I know.
People know him from Sons of Anarchy and The Outsiders. Like, he's had this great career.
Yes.
And those scenes with you two together, I really, really crackle.
Oh, thank you. We love working together, and it's amazing because he's like 6'5". He's
huge,
so
man.
imposing,
Yeah.
and just such a sweetheart and so lovely. But in the episodes, he's definitely badgering and pestering and intimidating me, but
it's a real great kind of cat and mouse though too, because like
Yes.
you clearly both trying to play each other. You don't know how much the other one knows.
Absolutely,
it's really, really interesting stuff.
Absolutely, it's definitely a dance between the two of us.
And is that the kind of thing where like is all that on the page in these scripts, or does that kind of come out more in performance, you think?
I think it's a combination, and I think that's with all great writing, and hopefully you have great acting partners, and so I think it's a combo of both things.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like the rest of this cast is phenomenal, and they're coming in their 5th season though. I'm curious, do you as an actor have to do anything different in order to come into a show that is midstream like this?
Well, it's lovely because it's a well-oiled machine at this point, and everybody, the crew, most of the crew and all of the cast, they've been there since they don't have a turnover because everybody loves working there so much in terms of the crew and everything. And so it's really lovely because there's just it's completely open and fluid and free and creative, but very focused. And so it's wonderful because there's a very strong point of view, and as an actor, that's always wonderful to step into a universe and a world where there's a very clear vision.
And it also must be nice too to step into a reality where going in that the people who make this show know how to make this show, and they know exactly what they want from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned like Buffy must have been at that point by the time you joined the cast, right? Like they kind of like that thing was pretty smooth by that point.
I mean, I came in season 2, beginning of season 2, but again, Joss Whedon is someone who has such a clear vision and is involved in every aspect and every choice, and it is just such an incredible talent that it's I always describe that kind of work as like obscenely fun because you go to work and you actually are just purely almost like a kid in a sandbox getting to play, and because where the floor is, what the parameters are.
Right, and then you're just free to go.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. Juliet, I wanted to ask you, you alluded to this earlier, but you at the moment are wearing many different hats. working on. I know you're directing a bunch of stuff. What have you been
Yes.
working on? It all sounds fascinating.
Oh, thank you. So I just completed my directorial feature debut, and it's called A Place Among the Dead. And
Which is, by the way, an amazing title for a thing.
Thank
We're
you.
really into titles here on Up All Afternoon.
Oh, cool.
And that is a very fine one.
Thank you so much. That I really appreciate that. The movie's all about the repercussions of growing up under the sway of narcissism and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And it questions, if you come from evil, will you continue in life to go towards the dark side? Or can you make a change and go towards the light?
Oh,
And it's crafted.
that's a very big question.
It is a very big question. and it's crafted in this revolutionary way where it's part fact, part fiction, part fantastical.
Oh.
So I actually play an alter ego version of myself, as do all of what I like to call cameos on steroids, because they're much larger than traditional cameos. And we've got Gary Oldman and Ron Perlman, Robert Patrick.
Oh, wow.
Lance
And
Henriksen.
and all playing kind of heightened versions of themselves?
Yes. Joss
Wow.
Whedon, my old boss from Buffy, and Anne Rice appearing for the first time ever in a movie.
Oh, the writer of the Vampire Chronicles.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
And so, and in doing this meld, I shine a light on myself and also on my father, Martin Landau, and my mother, Barbara Bain. And the whole point of it is, as they say, the more personal, the more universal.
Right.
I chose to make this searingly personal.
Are we like too personal? Has it gone too far?
No, I
Juliet?
actually think the whole point of it is to provoke conversation.
Yeah.
And to give voice to what has affected many, and to also, have the viewer become the participant. And we've had just started screening, and that's exactly what's happened. It's been so exciting. It's
Oh, wow.
really-
So you've just started having the opportunity to see movies with the audience.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's got to be, I always imagine that to be a simultaneously thrilling and terrifying thing for a director.
Well, it is. It's like it's your baby, right?
Right.
And then you're bringing it out and you've been working on it in your own bubble.
And you
for
don't
a
want
long
people
time.
to boo your baby.
Right? No, you don't. But the interesting thing is if you are doing something that is construed as controversial or divisive in certain ways, the thing that is really interesting about it is we screened. We did a whole theater full of young people from the Midwest, and then we also did all these industry notables like Rian Johnson, who directed the Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
The Last Jedi, and tons of people. And the response has been just so powerful and beautiful, and people have been sharing intensely personal stories. Like everybody's staying for an hour and a half afterwards unprovoked to talk
Really?
about the movie, and then start sharing stories amongst the whole
And
audience.
people who have similar stories to the one that you're telling in the film.
Similar or relating in different ways to things, and talking about their childhoods, talking about their parenting, talking about unhealthy relationships, talking about the nature of evil, talking about their brushes with evil, talking about when they've ignored red flags. Like, just, it's been so exciting. And the funny thing with the young people is that they kept asking if their teacher had told, because there's a whole way that we do the voiceover that I haven't ever seen in a movie before.
Okay.
And so they started saying, did our teacher tell you our internal thoughts ahead of time? Is that why he brought us to see this movie? And we're like, no, he didn't share your personal matters. But it was great.
That is a wild question to be asked. And
Yes.
also, I'm now deeply intrigued as to what this gimmick is.
Well, you're
That
gonna
sounds
have to
incredible.
See. Well, it basically, what I really wanted to look at is the agreements we all make with our parents, and how those become the voices or thoughts that run through your head,
Oh, wow.
and how those thoughts, depending on what you come from, can, inform your choices and can lead to destruction.
Wow.
Or, not.
Or not,
depending-
yeah,
right,
depending on
exactly.
the path you choose. So
Yes.
is this an idea then that you've been working on for a long time, Juliet?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it seems like you've been living it for most of your life as well.
Well, yeah, and then it's been wild, because at the same time as doing that, we've actually started a whole other project, which is called the Undead Series.
Okay.
And I like to describe this a little bit as Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, so this is vampires in coffins getting blood.
All right.
So
I'm intrigued. You intrigued me.
Good.
Again, we love titles on this show.
So good. So all of the people that worked with us on my feature came back to work with us again. And also Tim Burton and Willem Dafoe, and the list goes on and on. We've actually done, I think, 35 interviews at this point.
Oh, my God.
I've already shot.
And is it all sort of conversations about vampires?
It is, but it actually ends up going way beyond that. But it's the who's who A-list of the genre that have never been gathered together in one place, and basically we do talk about their particular having played in that sandbox.
Yeah.
And then it goes from there, and it's really fun. I mean, the interviews are very intimate, so people share stuff that they haven't before, and so it's funny and it's fun and it's candid, and then sometimes it gets really profound too, because we end up talking about our as human beings, and it's especially societally, our fear of aging and death, which obviously is part of our obsession with vampires and staying young.
It is kind of a wild thing that is an image and a character and an idea that no matter what age you are, what genre you're watching, like, it's always there. Like, It's this weird kind of universal thing.
It is.
Which is kind of wild when you think about what it is.
I know. It's true. It is the most enduring global phenomenon ever.
Yeah,
and
because every culture has a version of this too,
yes,
right? It's wild.
Absolutely, and it always gets reinvented for every time period. I mean, even now there's 4 vampire shows. There's The Passage, Ridley Scott's The Passage. There's What We Do in the Shadows has become a TV series.
Which is great.
We have
Legacies is on the CW.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles. Hulu's going to be doing that.
Yeah.
Nosferatu is actually with Zachary Quinto.
That 21st century. Oh man. See, and again, it's like those are all different ideas.
Right.
Like, they're all variations on this thing.
Exactly. And Lost Boys, they're doing Lost Boys again, and it'll be interesting to see what you're saying, how different and how it evolves. How different is it going to be from the 80s version?
Right.
It to be relevant to now,
It's fascinating stuff. Juliet Landau's here on Up All Afternoon. You can currently see her in the 5th season of Bosch. That's out now on Amazon Prime. And where and when are we going to get a chance to see A Place Among the Dead and the Undead series?
Well, I will keep you posted. We've been approached by 2 of the Biggie distributors,
Ooh, that's exciting.
which is super exciting, and we're loving the momentum. But we want to meet with everybody and decide, the right home for our babies.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when you put that much work in it, you want to make sure that, it gets done right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that is all extremely exciting. The one thing I want to ask you about, Juliet, is that you do a lot of voice work.
Yes.
And I'm very curious, does that kind of stimulate a different part of your brain? Do you approach that differently than you do, something like Bosch where you're on camera?
I don't approach it all that differently. I mean, obviously, every role is its own sort of puzzle or its own recipe, and obviously, the quality of the character in Bosch is going to be different than children's animation. Let's say, let's hope, right?
I would hope that the demands of like Ben 10 is different,
is a little bit different
than Bosch.
But I think my process isn't so dissimilar, and I really love doing voiceover. There's something so fun about it. I mean, first of all, there's no primping involved.
Right.
You show up and you, for all intents and purposes, could be in your bathrobe.
Yeah.
And it's also fun. Sometimes you work in a booth alone. Like when I did the Bioshock video game and a number of other video games. Sometimes you're alone. And then sometimes with Justice League or Ben 10, you work with the actors and you're sitting in a circle and you're kind of bouncing off of one another, and it's just
That's
really
very
a
cool.
joy. Yeah. It's fun.
I always love it when I hear that from voice actors that they've done it that way, because I feel like it really comes across in the show.
I think it does too, because then someone it's like a tennis match, and then you see what other people are doing, and it's so much fun. And sometimes it's also really great the way to they'll draw your character and they'll show you, because obviously it hasn't been animated yet, but you'll get to see, and then you're like, oh, okay. She needs to sound like this.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Juliet, how can people follow you and keep up with your projects coming up?
Well, Twitter, I am at Juliet Landau, and then I'm on Instagram. I have a blue check on Instagram.
Oh,
And woo,
so fancy.
so fancy. And I also am on Facebook. So that's my name, and then I also manage fans of Juliet Landau and Juliet Landau Official.
All right.
And yeah, I think that's enough ways to find me.
That feels like the right
that's
amount,
good.
right? Yeah. Well, Juliet, you can currently see Juliet Landau on Bosch. The 5th season is now available on Amazon Prime, and we'll have to have you back when A Place Among the Dead is ready to go. I'm very excited about it. I'm super intrigued.
Yeah.
Juliet, thank you very much for coming in and hanging out.
Thank you so much.
An absolute
This has
joy.
been a joy.
That is Juliet Landau. You can see her on Bosch and follow her on all of her socials. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Sam Highfill from Entertainment Weekly, going to talk about some TV news. That's up next on Up All Afternoon.